Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Anchor Church. Thank you. Good to see you guys this morning. Hey, my name is Josh. I'm one of the staff pastors here at Anchor Church. So glad that you've made it out here to sweat a little bit with me here in the summer sun. Glad to worship King Jesus with you, to sit under his word for a very brief few minutes. I promise some of you don't believe me when I say that, but I promise it's going to be brief this morning. I think Jesus would have loved this. He did his best work on beaches, in fishing boats, outdoors. And if you've wandered over from the boardwalk here this morning, you're just a little bit curious about what this Anchor Church thing is about, or maybe you're just here visiting from out of town and you are away from your home church and you wanted to be here with another church, we're so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. A warm welcome to you, a Virginia Beach warm welcome to you, an Anchor Church warm welcome to you. We're going to do what we do every week, and we're going to open up the living word of God. It's our favorite thing to do because we believe God has a word for each of us. We believe that all of the word is relevant for all of us all the time. And so that's what we want to do today. It's going to look a little bit different, sound a little bit different. We're hopping out of our study through the Gospel of Mark, and we're going to touch on something this morning that I think will affect all of us, whether or not you're a Christian. We're just glad you're here to encounter the King with us this morning. So I want to start this morning with a question that I think is probably relevant to all of us, whether you walked in with Christian beliefs or not. It's this: what is the point of you? What is the point of you? Like, why are you here today? Not here on the beach, not here for vacation maybe, but why are you here in the year 2026? What is the function and purpose of your existence? Why are you alive? Some of us stop to ask that question, some of us, but most of us don't stop long enough to answer that question. Like, what is the point of me? But I think it's worth sitting with for a few minutes this morning. So I've got three answers for us from the world's most famous, most purchased, most influential book throughout all of history, God's Word, the living Word, the Bible. Here's the first answer: God planned everything before you. God planned everything before you. Whether or not you walk in with Christian beliefs, this is true for all of us. God planned it all before you even showed up. You know, most of us in elementary school were taught that the human race, humanity, are at our core cosmic accidents through the process of evolution. Like something like 14 billion years ago, nothing exploded into everything, which funny enough, is exactly what happens in my inbox. Nothing exploding into everything when I say something dumb up here, but nothing exploded into everything. And rocks formed, the Atlantic Ocean cooled, and then right out here somewhere on this beach, our long ago ancestors, single-celled organisms appeared, and they crawled up into the forests of Virginia Beach, what we now know as Virginia Beach. And after millions of years and millions of random mutations, here you are and here I am. That's how we got here, a cosmic accident. Briefly conscious for a few decades on this planet, in a universe that has no idea and no care that you even exist at all. No real purpose for you, and the universe is not really going to notice when you're gone either, right? That is the secular story of human history. That's the best that they can give us. I want you to try something here. I want you to think about your mother. Get her face locked into your mind if you knew her. Think about your mother. Got her? Now think about her mother, your grandmother. And now think about her mother, your great-grandmother. A woman you maybe never met. I was fortunate enough to meet two of mine. And think about her mother now, your great-great-grandmother. For sure, you never met her mother, right? No chance. Keep on going. Mother after mother after mother. We're going back now, like 500 years. That woman, 500 years ago, your direct ancestor, she's maybe from Europe, maybe from Africa, maybe from Asia. She has no idea you exist 500 years ago. She's never heard of Virginia Beach or Neptune Park. She has no concept of the year 2026, and yet you are still here. So that means she had to survive. Some way, somehow, she had to survive. She had to meet a very specific person, one person in the universe. And she had to meet that person, fall for that person, and have a child with that person. Now go back even further, 1,000 years, 2,000 years. every war your ancestors survived through, every famine, every time they turned left out of the front door and then turn right to meet that very special person thousands of years ago on a Tuesday afternoon. Without that, turning right instead of turning left, you are not here in this moment right here. You never happened. You are, statistically speaking, mathematicians tell us, so improbable that the word impossible is almost not even enough to explain your being here on this morning. And the universe just did that by accident. Here's what I find a little bit more credible, a lot more credible, as for the reason that you exist today in 2026. It's from Acts 17. The God who made the world and everything in the world gives to all mankind life and breath and everything, having determined the allotted periods and boundaries of our lives. That's the Christian story of how we ended up right here. The God who made the world and everything in it has set before the beginning of time you in this moment to be right here. God determined the boundaries of your life, where you'd be born, what era you would inhabit, what family you would come from. For thousands of years, he has been weaving parents and grandparents into a tapestry that would be the unique tapestry that could produce you. If you reject the Christian story and instead embrace the secular story, then here's what you got. Here's the best you got to offer this morning. The universe kind of rolled the dice and shrugged and had no investment in what you do next, and who you are, and what you become, and what legacy you leave. When you die, there's not even a blip on the radar because the universe doesn't care about you. But the Christian story says something so much more beautiful, says something far different than the secular story has to tell us today, something that gives us so much more hope. It says that the same God who knit you together for thousands of years of human history to produce you, and specifically you, is a father who knows you by name and has a distinct plan for you. God planned everything before you, but he also planned everything about you. This is the second thing I want you to see this morning. So think about why you're here this morning. Not like at a church gathering here at the beach. Something in you hungers for beauty, which is why you end up at a place like the beach, the shoreline. Something in you hungers for something that dwarfs you, a beauty that dwarfs you, like the Atlantic Ocean here. Water this big does something deep down in our souls. It's why so many of us spend thousands of dollars to get to a beach vacation, because we want to feel something bigger than us and encounter a beauty bigger than us. This makes us feel small in a way that makes us feel good at the same time. Those feelings come from somewhere. They come from the fact that you are made by a creator who wants you to encounter and love and hunger for beauty. That's why you show up at a beach. And so if you come from a maker, if you are made, then who we are is not an accident either. Not just what we are, but who we are individually. So there was this guy in the Bible. He was a prophet. His name is Jeremiah. There's a whole long book named after him in the Bible. And I want to give you a little context for who this guy was. And in a second, I'm going to read to you what God said to him, because it is relevant to us all these years later, right here on the beach. So Jeremiah was called to do something genuinely terrifying in his life. He was called to tell a whole nation of people throughout his entire lifetime how jacked up they really were, how much of a mess they really were, and that they were hurtling towards destruction and judgment from God. It's not something that any of us are really signing up to do. We don't love to stand up in front of a group of people and say, you guys got it all wrong, and let me tell you what the right way is. It's an uncomfortable place to be in. He was called to tell them truth that they did not want to hear. And eventually in his life, he would be rejected for it. He would be in prison for it. They would actually throw him deep into the ground, into a pit because of it. And so when God told him that this was the calling on his life, his response was a little bit like mine, I imagine, would be. He's like, I am not qualified for this. I'm not strong enough. I'm not eloquent enough. I do not have the words to convince and persuade these people that where they're headed is for destruction, and that where they should be heading is for the beauty of your calling on their lives, God. I think as adults, we tend to do this too, right? When we feel a sense of conviction in our hearts, we might say, oh man, it's too late to make a change now, isn't it? It's too late. I got too much baggage. I don't even know how to turn around at this point. I am not who I thought I would be in life at this point. I thought I'd be so much further along financially or spiritually or relationally or with a family. We've got all these excuses when God starts to press in on our lives. And right into this fear that Jeremiah felt and that we feel in moments like this, right into Jeremiah's fear and into ours, God says something that should stop everything for us. He says this, Jeremiah 1:5. He says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before I made you, I knew you." And he says, "I appointed you for this thing that I'm calling you to do." Before you were born, I knew you and I appointed you for this. So the specific way you look, the funny, unique way that you laugh, whatever makes you laugh, whatever makes you cry, whatever kinds of movies you enjoy or music you enjoy, God has specifically crafted you in that way throughout the course of history to produce you in this day, the unique you that sits right there in the sun that is causing you to swelter right now. He knew it all. Before your parents knew you were a thing, before you had a name, before any of those thousands of ancestors made that choice on a Tuesday to meet that person. He said, "I want this one. I want you to carry out my beautiful purposes for this world." The world needs exactly whatever it is that he has given to you, whatever skill set, gifts, strengths, and weaknesses. The world needs what God has crafted you to be. He made you like that on purpose. I'm going to tell you what these gifts are that he's given to you, the purpose he's given to you here in just a second. But I want you to think about what's going to happen in your little corner of the world with whatever gifts you possess right now. What's going to happen in your little corner of the world when you and your gifts are gone from this world, when God has taken you off this planet? My uncle, his name was Mitch. My Uncle Mitch was a great man. I loved him. He, if you ever hear of a family member passing and a friend of yours, my uncle passed away about a year ago. You hear of an uncle passing from one of your friends, you might have a brief moment of sympathy. You might be sad for that person for just a moment. But if you're like me, when you hear of somebody's uncle passing away, we feel a little bit of sympathy and then we move on. We're kind of relieved that it wasn't a father, that it wasn't a sibling, that it wasn't a mother. But here's the thing about my Uncle Mitch. If you would have known him, you would have grieved him too. You would have grieved him deeply. He was a generous giver and a contagious laughter. Just an amazing, amazing man. But now when we show up for Thanksgiving, there's an empty chair, a chair that cannot be filled. You know that hollow feeling of showing up at a family gathering and there being an empty chair that used to be filled with such gregarious laughter, the amazing stories that they told. You don't know that feeling with my Uncle Mitch, but you know it. You're familiar with it, that hollow feeling. There's a chair somewhere in your life that used to be filled with someone that has a specific shape of absence now in your life. That's what Jeremiah's story is pointing at. He knew what specific irreplaceable thing that God has given to you to do in this life, so that one day when you leave that chair behind at that Thanksgiving gathering, it actually has meaning for the people who are left behind. It actually has legacy for those kids and grandkids. One day there will be a chair with your name on it, and what I want to know is what legacy will be left behind. What will that empty chair say? And so we're going to talk about how you can leave a full chair though you may be gone. God has planned everything before you. He's planned everything about you. And finally this morning, God has planned a specific agenda for you. He's planned everything before you and about you, and he has a specific agenda for you going forward from this place this morning. And I did some research this morning on obscure American holidays, and they are aplenty. There's 1 or 2 or 12 holidays for every day of the year. These are real, actual holidays that I stumbled on. Human beings have decided that it's worth celebrating on January 22nd, National Answer Your Cat's Questions Day. That's a big day, all right? February 28th, National Public Sleeping Day. Some of my Anchor Church friends celebrate this every week at 10 a.m. at the Sandler Center. I promise you, I see you, I track you, I know. Anyway, I just looked it up. Today is actually National Bourbon Day. You're welcome, all right? I guess you're welcome. Now, why do we do this as human beings? Why do we find literal, strange excuses to ask our cats questions on a specific day every year? Why do we find excuses to celebrate literally anything? Well, it's because we are not cosmic accidents. We are, at our core, creatures made by our Creator for celebration. That's actually why we're made. It's handcrafted deep down into our DNA, baked into it. The version of the story that says we are cosmic accidents cannot tell you why a sunset stops you in your tracks. They can't explain why you are taken with the awe of that sunset. They can't tell you why a piece of music, a particular piece of music, just breaks your heart open and the tears begin to flow. Why holding a newborn in your arms makes you feel such wonder. C.S. Lewis, you may be familiar with him. He's the guy who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, among many other books. C.S. Lewis, he's a brilliant man. He's actually a former atheist. He didn't believe in God, though he was converted in his adult life to become a Christian. He said this. He said, "If I find in myself a desire which no experience in the world can satisfy, if nothing else in this world can satisfy this one particular itch," he says, "the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world ultimately." Here's what he means by that. Every real appetite that we have points to a real thing in our lives, right? You get hungry, food exists. You get lonely, other people and community exists. You long for love, true love, real love really does exist. So what do you do with that desire in your heart, your deep down desire that nothing in this world, you've looked and you've looked and you've looked and nothing in this world can quite scratch that itch? The beauty that moves you but could never complete you. The love that is wonderful in your life but is never quite enough. You want a little bit more of it. The nagging sense that there's something a little bit more just beyond the edge of what you can see and feel. You just wish you could get there and arrive at it. C.S. Lewis says that desire is not a malfunction in you, that you're not quite complete in and of yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. He says it's actually like a compass for your heart, pointing you in a particular direction. It's pointing somewhere. And I think one of the directions it points is to your Bible and to Psalm 96. This is like an ancient, thousands of years old hype track, originally for the people of God in the Old Testament and now for us in the New Testament on this side of the cross. Here's what it tells us about why you were created, the direction, the compass of your heart is pointed. Here's what it says. Declare God's glory among the nations, his marvelous works among all the peoples of the earth. For great is the Lord and greatly to be praised. That is the direction the needle of your heart is actually and ultimately pointing to. Notice what this psalm is doing. And notice what we are not saying today. We don't just want you, if you're kind of a visitor or just exploring Christianity or exploring Jesus, exploring religion, we're not saying we just want you to have some kind of sentimental religious feeling. We don't want you to just attend a church service. That's not what we're here. It's not what we're here for. It's not what we're about. It's saying to declare with your whole life that there is something and someone worth celebrating and that the ultimate needle of your heart is pointed in this direction. That is the agenda. This is what you were made for. This is every day of your life. So back to the question that we started with. Why are you here on earth in 2026? The Bible's answer is simple and it's beautiful. It says this: you are uniquely made to celebrate and show how awesome Jesus is. That's the needle of your heart. That is the way that is designed to point. You are uniquely made to show and celebrate how awesome Jesus is. And why is he awesome? We're going to close with that. And I know this sentence might land strangely for some of you if you're not a follower of Jesus. Like, showing how awesome Jesus is does not at all sound like what gets you up in the morning to get to work. It's so foreign to you, you couldn't give a rip about that. If you're not there yet, I understand. I get it. That's okay. But I just want to encourage you to stay curious in your heart and in your life. Because the claim I'm making is not that you need to clean yourself up before you get to God. The claim I'm making is not that you need to join my religion. That's not what I am saying today. For those of us who are followers of Jesus, here's the thing. This is more ordinary than you think. It's just doing what you already do for a purpose that is bigger than yourself. Martin Luther King Jr., he said this better than I could say it. So I'm going to read you what he says. He says it like this. He says, set out to do a job and do that job so well that the living, the dead, and the unborn couldn't do it any better. If it falls to your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. That's it. Here at Anchor, we have like a simple phrase that we try to bake all those kinds of ideas into and reduce them to. And if you live this way with intention, being a street sweeper with intention, if you live this way and stack up day after day after day, here's what it culminates into. We say and pray it like this. God, please make the 757 like it is in heaven. We want the 757 to reflect what the glory of heaven looks like. We want to help the 757. If you're just visiting, the 757 is our kind of like our area code. Most of us have 757 numbers. And so we want the 757 to become a little bit more like heaven every year. Stacking up little wins for the good of our city and for the glory of God and for the glory of Jesus to show and celebrate how awesome Jesus is and how transforming his love is. This world has a lot of darkness, doesn't it? You don't need a sermon to tell you that. You got a phone that you can scroll through. You've already heard about plenty of darkness this morning. Our city is full of people who are hungry and lonely and overlooked and searching. Maybe some of you under the sound of my voice this morning are some of those people. We love that you're here. We've got people in tents, in these tents after we're done today that would love to pray with you and care for you and share with you how you can find hope in Jesus. I'll point you in their direction in just a second. But here's the Christian claim, ultimately. I want to say it plainly here. Jesus is the light, the only way to God, and every person who follows him gets to carry that light into their normal lives. And I've watched it work. I've watched it work through the people here at Anchor Church in some really miraculous, mind-blowing ways. It's been so beautiful. I've watched ordinary people in this church family open their lives to children that nobody wanted. Some of those children are probably running around in this lawn here today and out on the beach here in a few minutes. It's beautiful. I've watched people deliver food to strangers in hotel rooms and sit with them long enough to actually learn their names and hear their stories. I've watched men show up week after week for teenage boys who have no father in their house, not because it's glamorous, but because somebody has to. They need to show them the love of the Father and be a father figure in their lives. So many more stories I could share with you about what the people of Anchor Church are up to. I'd love to brag on them. Don't tell them I said this, though. None of those people that I just talked about and many others are exceptional. They're just normal people. They're normal people who use their ordinary lives for something bigger than themselves. I heard one guy say, my prayer is that when I die, all of hell rejoices that I am out of the fight. That's what I'm after. When I die, all of hell rejoicing that I am out of the fight, because there's one less person shouting and proclaiming the glory and the good news of Jesus and actually meeting the darkness where it is and pushing it back with the hope of the gospel of Jesus. This is the vision, that all of hell rejoicing when we're out of the fight. You were not made just to survive this short life. You were not made to just make it to retirement, to collect a few seashells out there in a few minutes and then just disappear off the planet. As we close here, I just want to talk to three specific groups of people. If you have never believed in any of this, all of us were there at one point, obviously. But if you are skeptical, if you're searching, if you've wandered over from the boardwalk this morning and you're not sure what you've walked into, here's what I would love for you to leave knowing this morning. Everything that we've talked about this morning, like a needle and a compass, does point somewhere. The impossible odds of your existence, the personality and the wirings and the particular longings of your heart that feel like more than biology, all of that is pointing to one person, And that person is Jesus. We were made to know God and to celebrate him. But most of us have spent a lot of our lives just ignoring him, running the show ourselves, living like we are the point of the whole story of our lives. And the Bible has a word for that, and it's not a very popular word today. The word for the Bible, from the Bible for that is sin, when we center our lives instead of God and serving others around us. And that's sin is not like just the dramatic stuff that makes the news in your social feed. It's the quiet daily decision to live like God isn't awesome and that he isn't the Lord of the universe and the Lord over you. And so what did God do about that? He sent his son, Jesus, in a human body, walking around on beaches like this one, teaching us how to live life and teaching us how to surrender and find life in him. He died for sins he didn't commit. He was laid in a grave, and then 3 days later, he got up, and he was proving his victory over the grave and telling us that if we just put our trust in him, we can find life in him and live a life that has meaning for the rest of our existence and on into eternity with him. You don't clean yourself up first. You don't get your act together first. You just come to him, and he does all that work for you. That is the gospel, and it's the best news that could ever be announced on this beach. If some of you today maybe you've grown up in the church, maybe you're not skeptics this morning, you would call yourself a believer. You're not searching, you just gone maybe like AWOL for a little while. Somewhere along the way in your journey with Jesus, life happened. You got comfortable. Maybe you got comfortable with your sin. Maybe you got hurt by the church. Or honestly, maybe you just gotten a little bit lazy in your walk with Jesus. You've drifted just so gradually that you look around, you can't even quite understand and believe where you've gotten. And the fire is gone, and you've been coasting ever since. You've been keeping the label of Christian without the life of Jesus. If that's your story this morning, if you've been doing just like barely enough to keep your conscience tamped down and quiet, if that's you, you were not made to coast. You were made to thrive and enjoy life in Jesus. So stop waiting for this feeling to return. That feeling may never return. Instead, just make the choice to come back to Jesus, recommit to him, get back in the fight. Because the good old days when Jesus really intoxicated you and you fell for him, that wasn't a phase. That was you living exactly the way that you were meant to live. So let me encourage you to come back to that. It's not too late to get back there. And then finally, if you are all in this morning, if you are a follower of Jesus, that empty chair is going to come for all of us, just like it did for my Uncle Mitch, that great man. The question is, what will that empty chair say? So wherever you go after you leave this beach today, your neighborhood, your job, your kitchen table, some air conditioning somewhere along this stretch, go back and push back the darkness. And if you don't have a church family to do that with, please come join us. We would love to partner with you, arm in arm, to push back the darkness for the good of our city and for the glory of King Jesus, to show our city how awesome and amazing he is. So we've been talking this morning about what it means to be made with purpose, how to live our purpose out, that you were known before you even existed. And so naturally, that should bring up a question for all of us who are here under my voice, whether or not you're a Christian is, okay, so what do we do with that? How do we actually take our first step in living with purpose? In a few moments here, a few people are going to come up on this stage, and they're going to show you exactly what it looks like to take that first step in obedience toward Jesus. It's the most ancient way a human being can publicly say, I'm with Jesus, I love Jesus. So if the Bird and Carpenter families, if you guys would go ahead and join me up here, the good news for you is that there's shade up here, even though y'all don't have shade out there. So Birds and Carpenters, come join me in the shade. And these families are going to be baptized. Several of them are going to be baptized this morning. Baptism is something that Jesus commands of every single follower of his. But I realize some of us here, under the sound of my voice, aren't as familiar with this idea of baptism. So I want to break it down for you real quick with just two quick ideas. I know you're sweating out there. Two quick ideas about what baptism is. First, baptism is a drama. It's a story. It's like a movie of what happened in the New Testament in Jesus' life. The act of baptism is a dramatic reenactment of the greatest comeback story that has ever been told in the history of the world. It's a literal embodiment of the story of Jesus. Jesus was left for dead forgotten, thrown into a tomb, and then he came back alive. That is, baptism is his story, and by God's grace, it can be our story. It can be your story. It's the story this little picture of baptism shows, only you guys better pray that I don't leave you under the water for 3 days. That would be a long time to hold your breath, though Jesus was in the grave for 3 days. So those of them that are going to be stepping down into the water here in just a few minutes, they aren't just getting wet. They're showing the world that Jesus is alive and that he is alive in them and through them. So it's a drama, but it is also a way that we go public with our faith. It's a drama, and it's a way that we go public with our faith. So when you are watching the World Cup this summer, or maybe baseball, or maybe football in the fall, how do you know which team you're going to root for? How do you know which one to root for on the screen? You know which team to root for based on whatever jersey they're wearing, right? You pick the team, you pick the jersey, you pick the team that you love, and you follow the team that's wearing the jersey of the team that you love. I made that as complicated as possible, but you understand what I'm saying. You pick your team and you follow their jersey on the screen. So I want to say that what baptism is really doing in our lives is it's allowing us to put on the Jesus jersey in our lives. It's showing the whole world whose team we play on. We play on the Jesus team, so we put on the Jesus jersey. The way we pull on the Jesus jersey initially in our first steps with Jesus is by stepping into the waters of baptism. And so this morning, if for the very first time, maybe you've had questions about the faith, or maybe you've been in the faith for a long time, but you've never taken the first step of obedience into the waters of baptism, I want to encourage you to consider taking that step today. Cameron is available somewhere, I think, in the middle. Maybe you can go to the back, to that black tent there in the back. If that is your story and you would like to speak with Cameron about maybe taking the first step of obedience this morning, please feel free to go speak with him. He's one of our pastors, a gentleman that would love to speak with you about following Jesus. Baptism is a drama. It's going public. You know, when I'm officiating at weddings, this is specifically for my Anchor Church family, and then I'll be done, okay? When I am officiating at weddings, one of my very favorite things to do, when I get up there at the very beginning of a wedding, I always tell everybody in the room, I thank them for coming. And I'll say something like this. Once the bride and the groom are fully down the aisle and they're standing right in front of me, I'll say to everyone out there, I say, hey, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm glad that you've joined us today. I know the bride and the groom are super thrilled that you're here, and they're really pumped to be opening your card later with whatever amount of cash is in there. But then I take a step further, all right? And I address the people and I say, listen, you are not just here to come to this ceremony, to eat some cake, to jump on the dance floor and then bounce. That is not the only reason that you are here at this wedding. Don't just be a passive attendee and then just leave. Let your presence here be a commitment to invest in the future success of this marriage, not just the celebration of this day. In the same way, my Anchor family, can this baptism day be that for you? Not just as a celebration on this day, but as an investment in the future health of these young saints who are going to step into the waters of baptism this morning. You know, there are always two parties involved in any baptism. You cannot baptize yourself. You ever notice that? No one has ever baptized themselves. There's always the church, and then there's the individual being baptized. Both are saying something about themselves and to the world when they're baptized. The person being baptized is saying, I am boldly committing myself to Jesus and to his family and to the church. And the church is saying, we're committing ourselves to this individual who's stepping into the family of God through the waters of baptism. So Anchor Church family, receive these young saints into the family today with faith, with hope, with love, and with a promise that you are going to pour into them and invest into them in the years to come. So listen, baptisms should be the wildest celebration that we have as a church family, okay? You should bring your clapper things or whatever, or your vuvuzelas, like they're playing at all these soccer games right now, or your sound makers or whatever. It should be the loudest that we get as a church family. Bring your fireworks if they weren't against the law out here on the beach. There should be tears, there should be shouts, there should be fist bumps, there should be fist pumps. It is where it is at. We once were dead, and we've been made alive through the gospel of Jesus Christ. The invisible reality of what is happening today. There's something happening inside these saints uh, something has already happened inside these saints where they have given their lives over to Jesus and he has made them alive. This is the outward expression of that inward reality.